I recently went to an exhibition of the famous Bulgarian painter Svetlin Rusev. He is known for his work in oils and acrylics, and he has a very specific style where he uses like bright, light, and yellowish colors in his painting in a time where most Soviet-era painters used like dark and toned down colors. He found his identity in this bright color palette. And this makes him instantly recognizable when you go into a gallery, especially when there are other artists from the same period. And every painter, every artist, like they have their own style, they have their own language, which is the equivalent of a writer's voice. Hemingway writes in one way, Dostoevsky writes in a second way. Rand writes in a completely different way and expresses her thoughts differently. The language, the style, the voice, this is how artists show how their thoughts flow in their mind. And when you look at an artist's work, they usually focus on one specific style for their during their lifetime. It can be like a certain color palette that they're using. It can be a certain style. So you see like their early works, their later works. You see how their maturity as an artist and as a painter evolves through these and through the repetition of this same process and applying this same language time and time again. Mastery just requires devotion to a particular style, and they all choose a niche to focus on. Like Rusev painted landscapes, Basquiat painted something completely different, but you can see the difference between their early and their later works. I usually say that programming is more art than science, but in the code that I write, I don't find the same mastery that I see in Rusev's paintings or the other artists that were part of this exhibition. I take pride in not having a style. I take pride in not having a label. I don't prefer functional languages over object-oriented languages. I don't prefer one framework or another. I don't like have strong opinions between languages. There is a job that I have to do, and I use the best tool for it. It's a badge of honor to be a polyglot and to be able to fill any missing link in the software development lifecycle. This is because our craft is tied to a purely economic result, and in us chasing the next feature, the next investment round, and the next release, there is no room to marvel at code like you'd marvel at a painting. Like code doesn't exist just for the sake of it existing, like a painting does, or a sculpture, or like a poem. Code exists to fulfill a purpose. Like we've given many talks, courses, and lectures about the importance of high quality and well-written code, but there isn't a single programmer who has devoted like their life to mastering a specific aspect of writing code, like mastering the functional programming style. It's important for your code to be maintainable, it's important for it to be extensible, but our ideals of what good code looks like are tied to the idea of maintainability. Basically, we appreciate code that we can go back and change and modify and extend and understand looking back, but we do not appreciate masterfully creatively, poetically written code just for the sake of it being written this way. In our line of work, self-expression is good for the creator but bad for the creation. We started thinking about style and about high-quality code when we started thinking about maintaining systems, like when software has to live long and when it has to be passed from one hands to another. So you may have one team who has built it, and then another who has to now maintain and extend it. In contrast with art, like software is never done. Like, of course, people say that art is never done, it's just abandoned. But at some point, you know, the sculptor has to say, okay, this is done. The writer has to like give their book to the publisher. But software never stops changing. There's always a new feature to add. There's a bug to fix. There's like some performance improvement. The landscape continues to shift under your feet, and it's very hard, you know, to make a piece of art and to make something beautiful when you constantly have to go back and change it. And this is why, you know, this is the tragedy of programming style, that we can never, you know, be pure artists because of that. And this is tied to one idea that I recently read about from a blog that I will link in the description, the idea of pure and impure software engineering. And pure engineering is not bound by economical result. This is something you can see in open source. This is software that exists for the sake of it existing. This is software that is built to be fast, to solve some problem, some pain point, but it's not tied to a particular company. It's not tied to its quarterly results or its next investment round. And this is when you can do pure engineering. This is when you can stop and think, what is the best way to implement this? How can I be a little bit more creative with this implementation? How can I express myself as a creator and as an artist? Most of us are actually doing what we call impure engineering. And impure engineering is more similar to plumbing or construction work. We are not chasing our own ideas of what is aesthetic or how a problem should be solved. We are building something based on someone else's understanding. Like we have a client or a company that has created this idea for a feature or a product, and we're implementing this idea regardless of how we feel about it. And usually when this is when this is the case, when you're doing impure engineering, you're chasing a schedule, and because of that you have to compromise, because you don't have all the time in the world in order for you to build things the way you want them. You have to do the best you can do with the constraints that you have imposed on you. And most of us, like I, have been doing impure engineering for the vast majority of my time as an engineer. If I get woken up at 3 a.m. to resolve a production issue, I don't really want to marvel at the beauty of someone's code. I don't want to think about what the author wanted to express here, why they wrote this code this way. I just want to be able to get the job done. I don't want to be impressed by the flamboyant way in which someone decided, to write down a function or a class or use recursion instead of a loop because, for some reason, I don't want to do that. I just want to solve the problem. So we attempt to homogenize how code looks, through linters, encoding standards, and what we call idiomatic practices, like practices that are specific and are recommended to be followed in a particular language. For example, we try to make people to write code the same way, because if one engineer leaves the company, you don't want the next person to have to rewrite their code because they don't understand it. You want basically every engineer who is writing in a particular language to write the same way. And LLMs drive this homogenization even more. The constant switch statements, the nested ternary operators, the way that they inline whole blocks of logic and code inside the JSX of a React component, for example. This is what happens when you rely on the defaults of a model and you don't have a sense of taste and a sense of what you want to achieve. And there are good and bad sides to this LLM homogenization that I mentioned. If you're a poor coder, if you're someone who's just getting started and you don't have a well-developed sense of what a high-quality code looks like, they take you up to the baseline. So you know that what you get out of it may not be perfect, may not be great, but it's going to be passable. You're gonna get this average level. But also, if you're a more experienced engineer and you settle with the default output that you get out of them, you're also kind of degrading this quality, and you're not helping the future engineers, the junior engineers who are coming after you, who are reading your code in order to get inspired and learn how to actually build products. You're not showing them what great code looks like. And I see that with LLMs, both experienced and inexperienced people are settling with the average. This is because as an industry, we are obsessed with speed. There are startups who are shelling out thousands of lines of code daily, and it's impossible for you to put attention to every line that you're putting out in the repository. And there's also the question of, do you have to pay attention to it at all? If we are actually doing impure work, and if we're actually just driving an economic result and no one is caring about craftsmanship, who cares if the code is bad? We'll never marvel at code the way we do at a painting or the way we read a poem just for the lyricism of the language. And code is probably a temporary medium. The same way punch cards were used in the past, we're probably going to, outlive code. We're going to increase the level of abstraction. Who knows? Maybe we're going to be working with boxes and arrows and prompts next. I don't know. Maybe English is the next programming language. But in this small period of time where code is the way that we express our ideas and our thoughts, I really want to be a craftsman. Somewhere out there, there's the equivalent of Svetlin Rusev. There's a programmer out there who has the ability to write the most beautiful implementation imaginable, create the best looking and the most readable and exquisite implementation in code that you can imagine. But we will never find out about them. And this is the tragedy of programming style. Thank you for watching.